In today's episode, we're working on this Porsche 912 engine that hasn't run in over 10 years. So the big question is, can we make it run? Supposedly the problem with this engine has something to do with the cooling fan, and I believe the nut fell off and somehow got into the fan shroud area. The other problem is when you pull the throttle, the whole fan shroud is moving. It's not actually attached like it's supposed to be here on the sides. So we're going to take a look inside the fan shroud and see if we can discover what's wrong. Plus, we'll probably have to go through the carburetors, make sure the oil's clean, make sure the engine turns freely, and then we'll try to start it up. This is the 09 distributor. This is common on VW bugs and Gias and buses. This is really not a Porsche distributor, has no business on this engine. Is this a runner or not? But step one is let's get it up on the engine test stand so we can work on it and also attach a starter to it, make it spin. That doesn't fit. There's a flat plate on my jack with those little nylon pads, and that's what's lifting it up on the case. And it will balance here as long as you get it relatively in the center. So here's how the engine's now supported. Basically, it's got a wide base on this frame. This is the same frame I use for 911s, so it's very wide. The legs are shorter for VW and 356, but it's definitely secure now. It's at a good height that I can work on it. This is the fan shroud that's loose. I'm pretty certain these carbs have to come off. Oops, that was easy. So we might as well just take them off now. The fact that a lot of this stuff is loose kind of makes me wonder really what's wrong with this engine. But before the day is over, we will find out. I've never seen air cleaners this big on a 912 356 engine. And then of course we got our famous house plumbing. And normally there's 12mm nuts here because the access is so tight, but it's using 13, which means these might be hard to get off. See how there's not much room to move the wrench? You pretty much can't take this one off. These, of course, are easy. See there, I can't really get my 13mm socket in there either, even with the universal joint on there. It's just a tight space. It's just barely grabbing, just the very corners of the nut. So I got it off. This is where the fan shroud bolt is missing. So there's a bolt that kind of ties all three of these corners together. Just noticing this stack of washers looks pretty messy. So let's pull that off too. See this bolt here holds the oil canister on? It's 1/4 20. It's not metric. Oops. And back here, there was some trauma. For some reason, that hole is completely distorted and out of round and caved in. So not sure what's up with that. I don't see anything laying in here. Nothing's really too bad. The oil cooler, it's the original oil cooler, stock oil cooler. It doesn't look like it's all contaminated or damaged or anything. There is some loose items underneath here. A little washer. Here's a nut right here. But this is not really too much of a concern. I also see that this is marked 010, which means this case has probably been line bored 10 thousandths. It's got, looks like cast iron cylinders, and the heads look pretty clean. There's another nut down in this hole. Let's see if we can get it. There we go. Probably a carburetor nut. Fan is hitting the shroud. It's not supposed to make that sound. But the actual blades of the fan look okay. So let's pull this off and see why the fan's rubbing. I think I know right away it's missing a gasket right here. Yeah, no gasket is no bueno. There's a little bit of damage to the linkage. It's just bent. Not, you know, we just got to straighten a few things. This system up here is, I think, copper house plumbing, and this is like electrical conduit bracket. And this is where we start doing some body work, because the hole on this side is caved in as well. I just pounded a little bit of it out. Just got to hit right here. I actually ended up fixing both of them. At least it's level. And of course, a washer is going to cover that up, so no harm done. And then I think this nut is the one that's supposed to go on this side. Okay, at least this part of the fan looks okay. Sometimes these have a weird shape to them as well. And then you can see where the fan has been hitting the shroud. Also, look at this, it's got contact on it as well from the bolts. Looks like these bolts here are long enough to actually make contact with that ring. But the hub on this side looks okay. Inside here, it doesn't look too bad. It looks like it was stored without fuel in it, because it's not all full of red junk. And these are the idle jets here. This is really hard to read. I think this is a 50. I like to use these barbecue skewers because they're wood, and you really can't damage a carburetor with a toothpick or a skewer. So I just work that down in those really low spots, breaks free some of the silt. And this just returned from the ultrasonic cleaner, and it looks much better inside and out. There's one thing when it was in the liquid, I tried to actuate the accelerator pumps, and I'm not getting any volume out of the nozzles. And the diaphragm doesn't have any holes in it, so we'll just blow through those passages and see if we can get it to work. This jet here is the accelerator pump jet. It's completely clogged. So these are marked 50, and I have some pin gauges that I can use to clear these out without really scratching them up too bad. It's a good idea to use these as well to check the diameter of each of the jets, just to make sure they haven't been altered. Yep, see there it comes out right there. And there's a bunch of junk on the end of it that just popped out. So now when we spray through here, it should spray through. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna put this system back together. It gets a copper washer on the top and the bottom. The other thing I like to do, because this was in the water bath or the ultrasonic cleaner, I like to oil the bearings because there's ball bearings in either end. So just lubricate the throttle shaft. Actually, I'm checking the idle jets too, and this idle jet's clogged. So my pin will not go in this one. Now it's clear. I like to use a little bit of silicone oil on the O-ring too. We just lube it before we stick it in the car body. And you do not tighten these very tight. The air corrections are 200, and it's an F11 emulsion tube with 120 mains. I did adjust the float too, so it's a 10 millimeter or just completely vertical. So you can see how the float is just level with the carb top. That's the baseline adjustment. Okay, off camera, I got the other carburetor completely, I wouldn't say rebuilt, but just cleaned out. I've got the accelerator pumps cleared out. The idle jets were clogged on this one too. But now I'm gonna work on this floppy throttle linkage. Yeah, this was just a barrel nut. And I suppose maybe that was just loose, but this design is not great. Some of you guys probably aren't gonna like this, but I'm gonna try to start it, at least run it on the idle circuit without the fan shroud and the whole air cooling system. See what else we can find that might be wrong with this engine. There we go. Just make sure there's some oil in it before we crank it over. Something. Yep, it's got a little too much oil. Awesome. I've just connected the ignition coil to the control box, and also I just attached this fuel bottle here to the front. Normally this fuel bottle goes down on the engine stand on that bracket right there, but I don't have a long enough rubber hose or fuel hose to make it work. So I'm just gonna use it right here. So we just need to add some gas and try it out. And I am using a strainer or paint filter. The float bowls are totally dry, so I'm gonna take out one of the jet stacks and just squirt some fuel in there. Yeah, it's ready to go. I got a little leak here. I think I didn't tighten that hose clamp at all, so I need to fix that. But we're starting to get some fuel in the fuel filter, which is great that the fuel pump is pumping. Let's fix this real quick and then we'll try again. I really don't like these worm style clamps, so I will most likely replace all of this with something else. We'll try some starting fluid. Yeah, I think the ignition's not doing great. Rotor's a little dirty, so we'll clean that up just a little bit. But we got to check the points. The reason why I took these out is because this rubbing block looked like it had worn all the way through, but it just had a little bit of grease on there, probably too much. There's grease on the points. So let's clean off some of the extra grease and clean the points, see if we get it to run. The points are just a little bit pitted. You can hear my fingernail, dragging across that. So I'm just gonna file that down right now. These probably should be replaced, but we'll just try to make it run. And now the points look a lot better, cleaned up really nice. This is a 16 thousandths gauge right here. So we just want that to be 16 thousandths when the points are open. That rotor's much cleaner now. I think we're ready to try to start it again. I did move my fuel bottle over to, well, this is a whole new gas tank. It's my outboard setup. Just gonna squirt a little bit in there. Close. Come on, baby. Got some fuel leaking out of this one. Not too much, but got to keep an eye on that one. Just going to turn the idle up here to try to get it to go. There we go. That's not good. We got a big oil leak coming from, looks like it might be coming from, there's like the third piece. Looks like the fuel's coming out of this accelerator pump because it's wet right there. So it's dripping all down in here, and I think I may have found the oil leak. It looks like this bolt right here is loose, and that would do it because it's dripping right there on the sheet metal. So let's tighten that up, see if that stops. The generator was missing this piece, which I pulled out of my own collection of 356 parts. This is actually a 356 faceplate. It's not correct for the 912. So I found this one, which is a 912 one, but it's for the larger diameter generator. So these don't fit together. So what I'll have to do is just use this from the 356, attach this way, and then this goes on like that. And that's one of the reasons why these studs look so long, is because it was actually missing pieces. This goes here. Then there's 2 to 5 of these that go right here. Depends, 2 to 5. And then this goes like this. I'm gonna try 5 of these. I've had to dip into my own stash of hardware. there we go. We're going to go with that. There's more shims than the diagram shows, but that's the best I could do with the parts I have. So let's move over to this end. Also, there is a torque spec on that, but this is really difficult to torque it with, it's really awkward. So I may go back and torque it when it's on the engine because it holds everything for you, but I'm pretty sure that is tight enough with the impact wrench. This is the hub that's trashed, and I found a better hub. It's in much better condition. It's not all torn apart, but it's really tight on here. It's basically I can't get it off. So I gotta get the torch out, heat this up, spray some oil in there, and try to salvage this hub so we can put it on this generator. I couldn't get that hub off either. It's totally stuck. That has to be cut off. I had it completely red and the flange just broke right off. So this is a tough one. But wait, there's more. I got another one here. Let's see if we can get this guy apart. Okay, never mind. This is all one piece. So I struck out on the hub, and I also struck out on the gasket that goes here. So I'm gonna have to make do with what I have. I will order the hub and order the gasket, but I can only do so much. So we'll get this in here. Okay, there's no sound. I think we got a little lucky. There really should be a shim on that, but it's just real close, doesn't make contact. I had to remove the carb and this aftermarket adapter so I can get to this screw. This is the fan shroud screw that was missing before. The two end screws are in now, and it makes a huge difference on the stiffness of the fan shroud. This is the smaller 12mm nut. So this is a 12mm wrench. It won't go on these outer ones, but this is a special nut for that. And my wrench has got a small cut into it. And that's just to give a little bit more motion as we rotate this around. So it just catches, one, it runs into the shroud, and then two, it runs into the carburetor. But it is definitely possible to tighten these with a wrench, but it helps if it's a 12mm across the flats. And just like that, it's miraculously back together. Let's see if it runs now. Got the fan adjusted. That might be a little too tight. We'll see once it runs a little bit. It's a runner. Sounds pretty good. I got a little bit of warmth into it. It looks like the oil leak here on top has been fixed. There's a little bit of smoke and stuff coming from underneath, so I'm out of time. I wish I was able to, do more, which I'm gonna do it anyways, but I'm gonna do a compression test, leak down test, measure the end play, adjust the valves, give it like a proper tune-up, probably swap the distributor, but basically it looks like it's like Benji said, a good running engine. The reason why I put a little time into it is because I get to, as a bonus for swapping his 3.2, I get to keep half of the revenue from this. So anyone's looking for a 912 engine, I think this is a good one. I may not make another video on the leak down results, but if you're interested in this engine, please reach out to me and we'll make sure you can buy it. Take care, guys. Thanks again.